Good evening. The special call meeting of February 5th, 2013 will now be called to order. We'll start with an invocation by the Reverend J. David Phillips from the Community Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Alan Plakowicz. Please rise. Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you. Just let me say on behalf of Community Church, I'm honored to be here today. I literally just got off our church bus from visiting some places around this beautiful county, Shining Light Gardens out on 66th Avenue, Daisy Bridgewater Hope Center, Wabesso, and one of the child care resources centers, Trinity Episcopal Church, on this beautiful day that God's given us. Let us pray.
Thank you.
Eternal God, we give you thanks for this time and place. We thank you, Lord, for the citizens of this beautiful county and for its leadership. We pray, O Lord, today as we invoke your presence, that you'll be with this commission as they lead through discernment and wisdom. We pray for them, for their families and their lives tonight. We pray for those in attendance, O Lord, for their lives and their families. We pray, O Lord, tonight for those who serve this county in courageous and wonderful ways, including those in law enforcement, our first responders, our educators, our legislators and judiciary, and certainly our faith community. And a special word tonight, O Lord, for those of our county who are serving in the military, domestically and in places across this world. Be with them and their families. Grant us grace and peace and love and a spirit of wisdom for all of our days to come. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This is a special call public hearing, and the item under public items is a consideration of amendments to Land Development Regulations, LDRs, Chapters 911, 912, and 971 to allow outdoor vehicle storage use in the CL, Limited Commercial, and CG, General Commercial zoning districts, and to eliminate limitations on length of recreational vehicles stored outside on residential properties. This is public hearing number 2 of 2. Memorandum was dated January 28, 2013. This is legislative in nature and found on pages 1 through 34 in the backup. Welcome. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Stan Bowling, County Planning Director. As you mentioned, this is the second of 2 hearings on some amendments to our land development regulations. The first hearing was held on January 22nd. There are really 2 principal amendments proposed. One is kind of a minor or smaller item. It's completely separate from, I think, the main item, but it deals with the length of recreational vehicles allowed to be parked in residential areas. Right now there's a 32-foot limitation on that length. The proposed amendment would do away with that length but keep an overall size requirement. The other matters, the one that's gotten the most discussion is a proposal to allow as a special exception use outdoor vehicle storage facilities in the CL Limited Commercial and CG General Commercial zoning districts. As a special exception use, those would involve public hearings and general criteria as well as specific criteria. The proposal that you all considered on January 22nd had 6 specific criteria dealing with buffers, light shielding, prohibitions on the types of vehicles that could be stored, and prohibitions on activities such as sales and rental of vehicles. There were concerns at that meeting expressed by residents of Ursuline Heights as well as Roseland leaders. Ursuline Heights is a residential subdivision that's located adjacent to CL. I'll just show you a map of Ursuline Heights. This is at the north end of the county in Roseland along US 1. Ursuline Heights residential area is in sort of tan colored, zoned RS6 residential single family up to 6 units per acre. There are a number of blocks between the residentially zoned and developed portion of Ursuline Heights and US 1. And in the kind of the pink color is CL zoning district. Again, several kind of blocks are zoned CL. There is the Ursuline Lanes building and facility, which is where I'm showing you here on the cursor right now. And there has been a pre-application conference proposal for some additional development to that site, including potentially an outdoor vehicle outdoor vehicle storage use on the north side of that building. But again, with Ursuline Heights, many of the residents living here, 78th Avenue is a local street that separates the single-family lots from the commercial faces, and is mostly oriented toward US 1. Concerns expressed by the residents were traffic on local streets, back kind of behind the commercially zoned properties. Noise from test driving vehicles could occur, spillover lighting, and aesthetic incompatibilities with the neighborhood, and also that portion of US 1 is a major entrance to Indian River County. With respect to special exceptions and the proposal, there are specific criteria already in the previous proposal that address some of those concerns, especially the buffering requirements and light shielding requirements and some of the prohibitions. And there are general criteria for compatibility with the special exception process. Staff would just point out that if there are similar facts in a particular situation, similar results, approval or denial needs to occur. So in trying to rely on the general criteria, you just have to be careful that if you have similar situations, you have kind of similar findings. And the Ursuline location and Mr. Sigler's location down in the South County at 27th Avenue Southwest were both discussed at the last hearing. Because if you recall, Mr. Sigler's CL zone property was really, and some of his discussion was the impetus for the board considering the changes. This is Mr. Sigler's property. He owns several lots together here that are zoned CL in the South County. Also owns property on the north side of 6th Street Southwest, where he's converted a house to an office. 27th Avenue, like US 1, is an arterial road. The CL zoning occurs on several blocks along 27th Avenue Southwest. There's a local street, 28th Avenue Southwest, and then a residential zoning district and residential development to the west. And in this case, it's RS3 that's shown in yellow. So there are a number of similarities between the sites, and that's really not surprising. Oftentimes, CL district, limited commercial, is located between single family and a major roadway. That's one of the kind of the textbook type of examples of a location for that district. And the CL districts are located throughout the urbanized areas. Many times they're along major roadways, and they're adjacent to single-family areas. The principal difference that staff found really between the two sites is that the Ursuline site is at a major entrance to the county. That was one of the kind of compatibility issues that was discussed at the last hearing. And the 27th Avenue Southwest properties are not near such an entrance. Now, a specific locational criterion could be added to the proposed ordinance, and that is essentially the alternative 1 that staff outlined in our report. And as we mentioned to you all at the first hearing, we would come back with some alternatives for you to consider. Alternative 1 would be to add a prohibition to standalone vehicle storage lots within a mile of major county entrances. And those entrances are along US 1, the north and south county lines, at the I-95 interchanges at 510 and State Road 60. There's also another one down at 27th Avenue Southwest at the South County line where there is one CL zone parcel. The results, if that criterion were to be added to the ordinance and the ordinance adopted, it would eliminate the Ursuline-Roseland locations. It would allow Mr. Sigler's site to at least qualify for a special exception application. It would be considered separately, of course. But it would also allow some other locations that are along County Road 512, State Road 60, US 1, and Oslo Road principally. And I know you've seen these maps before, but just wanted to go over where we have CL district locations. Again, up here in the Roseland area, with that locational criterion added, that would be eliminated. We do have some CL near County Road 510 and 512, and then some other locations along US 1, south of Sebastian, Wabasso and Winter Beach areas, and down north of the city of Vero Beach city limits. Also in the South County, there's some locations of CL property that's between 58th Avenue and 43rd Avenue, along Oslo Road and 27th Avenue. So there are some other locations of CL that the alternative one would not eliminate out of the box, so to speak, if the ordinance were adopted with that added. Also, just pointing out that there is a CL district location in the moorings on the South Barrier Island. Hypothetically, it wouldn't be eliminated by this specific criteria, but it is already developed, as you can see from the aerial here, completely developed with a boat dock facility and condominiums and office. So it's not likely that that would be redeveloped. Alternative 2 that staff looked at was to rezone, what would be the possibility of rezoning the Sigler property on 27th Avenue Southwest to CG and then limiting the storage lot use to CG only. Of course, that would eliminate all CL locations, including up by Russell Dune. But in looking at the future land use element, and one policy in particular directs what types of properties or candidates really to be zoned CG. And one of the policies is that CG districts must be separated from residential development. CL districts, on the other hand, are allowed adjacent to single family. And in staff's opinion, that policy could not be satisfied at the Sigler 27th Avenue property, and we really would not recommend changing the policy because that's needed to protect single family areas from CG rezonings. So we think that's important to stay as it is. So alternative 2 is not feasible. A third alternative would be to deny the proposed amendments, and I think that the basis of that would be alternative 1 does limit some of the potential conflicts, actually perhaps many of them with single family areas, but some potential conflicts would still remain. And if the board wants to avoid all the potential conflicts, then alternative 3 would be to deny the proposed amendments. Staff's recommendation is that the board adopt the ordinance with the locational criterion in alternative 1, but alternatively, if the board wants to avoid and eliminate all potential conflicts with single family, the way to pursue that would be to deny the ordinance. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Bowling. Commissioners, we have any questions for staff?
One. Stan, could you go back to the map that shows the CL locations? I'm looking at the black and whites, but your color is a little easier to... So really, CL always fronts a arterial or
a major roadway, that's correct. In
So-
these locations, you can see, yes, for instance, here, State Road 60, they all have frontage on State Road 60. Here, 27th Avenue or Oslo. In the morning example, A1A, we have one off Indian River Boulevard. Most of them are along US 1.
Okay, and the difference between this and, let's say, a car lot, this is because it's standalone storage only, not retail sales of autos.
Correct.
And I'm just trying to think through down the road that if we carve out something unique that prohibits there, then they just say it's a car lot and they stick something there, then they've got a roundabout way around the same problem we're trying to...
No, that's a good point. And car lots or car sales lots
Right.
are not allowed in the CL zoning district.
Oh, they're not?
They're not.
Okay.
They are allowed with certain criteria in the CG zoning district and in the CH district as well.
Okay.
But again, that's one of the types of uses, that's one of the differences between CL and CG.
Right, okay. All right, I'm sure I'll have something else in a minute, but that's
Sure.
it for now.
Anyone else? This is a public hearing. Public hearing is now open. I appreciate any comments that need to come forward. If you do, please step up to the podium and, for the benefit of the clerk, give your name and address. Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Cy Carlson. I live on Bay Street in Roseland, and I was the chairman of the task force that we put together about 10 years ago to try and protect ourselves from wrecking Roseland with various things coming along. But my main comment on this particular issue is that the location is right at the point where the two rivers come together. And if we put open car lots, it will ultimately get there eventually, oils and things that come out of parked vehicles. And I just think that it would be a shame to take that beautiful confluence and do this at that point. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is George Sigler, and
When I started this process in front of this board, I simply was intending to get a special exception to this lot that I have on 27th Avenue. On the west side of the lot is 28th Avenue, and there's one house located across the street from my property there. On the south side is a used car lot, and it's all zoned CL on the south side of me. On the north side of me is my office building, which is also zoned CL, and on the east side is 27th Avenue. When I started this process, after reading county ordinances, I realized that one size doesn't fit all, and I made it very clear to this board, if there was an uproar in the neighborhood where I'm proposing this, I'd certainly disband the effort. And I appreciate these people from Roseland, what they're looking at. But this lot is, I think, very unique. Like I say, I have a used car lot just to the south of me on this property. And when I started this process, I was intending to get a special exception only on this lot for the CL zoning. I did not know that the county would expand this thing to all CL properties and also include lengthening the type of RVs. I will say I'm sorry I missed the last meeting, but I was tied up with the military operation up in Alabama. But I will say that I've looked at a lot of RV. I'm primarily interested in RV storage there. Maybe some people would want to keep a boat up under a shed there, but designed very nicely to be compatible with the district there. And in my experience as an RV owner, I would have to take exception to people don't test drive RVs. Mostly people my age that have an RV, they use it once or twice a year and they store it, and that's pretty much it. So there's not a lot of traffic that takes place with RV storage because people just don't use them on a daily or weekly basis at all. But again, when I started this process, I was simply looking at my property, never expecting that this would be expanded countywide. I was just simply looking for a mechanism for a special exception to this property. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jim Applegate, 14445 80th Avenue, Sebastian. Give them a variance. That's all you got to do. We're out of here. You guys are making one mistake, I think, or at least a potential mistake. Everybody keeps talking about test driving cars, and cars aren't allowed in this area, in the CL zone, selling of cars. If you give outside storage blatantly to the CL area, and the pawn shop goes through that's in their application now in our area, now he has outside storage, he's going to hang his hat on the fact that he can sell cars. And you're going to have a hell of a time stopping him from doing it because the law says he can do it. The Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services we contacted after we were told here last meeting that, oh, you don't have to worry about it, he can't sell the cars. Well, he can. We asked them directly, if a pawn shop takes cars in and they're not claimed in a lot of time, can they sell them? I have it in email here in writing where per Florida statute 539.0012-0, pledged goods, tangible personal property. It goes on and on and on in Chinese and you can't hardly understand it. The bottom line was, we told them, we don't understand it, tell us in English exactly what you're telling me. They came back to us. Thank you for contacting the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services with your question. Per our Bureau of Meditation and Enforcement, the vehicles may be sold, period. So you guys are saying they can't do it on a county level. The state's saying they can do it on a state level. If they can do it, then all the neighbors' concerns in Roseland Road about test driving these vehicles in the neighborhood is correct. So you're opening up a can of worms here. If I own the pawn shop, you're going to tell me county-wise I can't sell the vehicle. The state says I can. My license says I can. What do you think I'm going to do? I'm sell the vehicle. We went through all our concerns the last time we were here, and we've never had to come back in front of you guys a second time, so we don't know. Do we have to rehash everything we went through, or do you remember?
Still have the pictures on my desk.
Okay, so that's the buffer zone part of it. That's out of the
Right.
question already. We're not buying the buffer zones. All right, if we don't have to go through the old stuff, then let's go into the new stuff. Staff states, and I quote, "The purpose of the proposed amendment, whether you choose 1, 2, 3, or 4, the purpose of the proposed amendment is to allow the outdoor storage of personal vehicles near residential areas with criteria that," and I quote, "ensure compatibility." Not sometimes ensure compatibility, not once in a while, not making deals, all the time. It says you will ensure compatibility. Now, if we go to your choices, staff again has recommended now either one of two choices. Number one is alternative 1, which still has the potential to create incompatibilities. So the word's right there. If the amendment is to ensure compatibility, but yet Amendment 1 states it will potentially create incompatibilities, isn't it out the window? It's gone. So the only thing left is to ensure compatibility, as the proposal states, is for you guys to deny. That's all there is to it. You can't go both ways. As for parking the RVs, too, I have a question for you. If my neighbor on my right parks a 40-foot RV in his yard with a 40-foot setback on his property, and the next guy on the other side does the same thing, and every family has an average of 2.8 cars, where are the cars going? Where's he going to park the cars if you let him park the RV in his driveway and now he has no parking? Are they going in front of my house? Because I don't want them there. So he can't get in his garage. That's not the answer. So you're forcing on-street parking. I don't get it. If this guy buys an RV to travel around the country, to go out to California or Maine or New Hampshire, whatever he wants to do, I find it hard to believe that he can't drive 5 miles to a storage lot. I mean, he bought the thing to drive it, so let him drive it. Store it someplace. Store it at this guy's property. What is the variance you're going to give him? That'll work for me. I don't see any answer here but denying, and to us, we know we're in a win-win situation now in the Ursuline area with your 3 alternatives you have on the table, but I don't think this is a not in my backyard situation. You're causing a problem here throughout the county. It shouldn't be. CL is there for a reason. Let's leave those reasons well in place. Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Yes. Shoot, fire away.
No, Mr. Applegate brings up some very good points. And Stan or Bob, can you explain why we just can't give the variance?
And we probably both can, but I was going to say that there, specifically in our code, there's no allowance for use variances. You change the code or you structure exceptions and have a special review process for it. Mm-hmm. So we have to either change the rules when it comes to a use. We have to stick with the categories that are allowed in the zoning districts.
Yeah, let me just expand on that. Variances are used for size and dimension criteria, for setbacks or other aspects of zoning like that. And variances can be given only under certain circumstances, only when it's a hardship, only when that hardship is not self-created, and a number of other circumstances, which is why I think we've probably averaged 1 variance every 3 years here. Some jurisdictions don't do it right. They don't adhere to the law. When we find a problem, we try to address it globally, because variances should not be the norm. Variance is a varying of the rules, and it's important that rules are set up to apply equally to everyone, and everyone knows the rules going up front. So that's just an
And
overview.
that's what, I clearly, in the special exception, that there's not a person sitting up here that doesn't understand, when it's right and when it's not, I would say. But now, sitting for like Mr. Applegate's perspective, I understand that and I respect that, and he's an intelligent man, and I see his fears and concerns. And so,
in order, and I drove down to Mr. Ziegler's site, look at it again, and I drove up to the Roseland area to look, and it just, I mean, there's just such a clear difference just because they have the same zoning that it goes back to that, one size doesn't fit all. But to ensure some level of protection, what you're kind of, what I see staff getting at is that 1 mile radius would basically ensure that the Roseland concerns are taken care of. But at the same time, this area, and I'll give you another area that really makes a lot of sense is right like in the Winter Beach area. You got areas right up next to a industrial use of a packing house. You've got boat repairs, and those aren't CG. They might be grandfathered in, but you can just tell that that would be an appropriate spot for outdoor storage. It's a good central location and a zone commercial limited. And so, from what I'm hearing from you of all the alternatives, to be fair to Mr. Applegate as well as to be fair to Mr. Ziegler, I don't want a bunch of time and resources, A, fighting an issue that doesn't make sense, or B, proposing an issue that doesn't make sense if ultimately it's going to get rejected. So that 1 mile radius, why, and it was basically at the entrance or coming in, why wouldn't we expand that over to A1A? That's an entrance into the county just because it's on the barrier island, still an entrance into the county. And so why was that left out of this matrix of conversation down the moorings? I mean, I understand it won't because it's already developed, but looking at it from that criteria.
You need more than a mile.
I think what we wanted to, what staff was looking at is a reasonable distance to define, what is the entrance? Where does an entrance stop when you're already there, as opposed to being at an entryway? And it seemed to make sense in terms of the interchanges in the North and South County on US 1, that it would take in a fair amount of commercially zoned area in those areas. It seemed to correspond with basically a strip of commercial that was already there in those locations.
Okay, let me ask one other question then, in order to try to, for example, and I need to take it out less abstract terms. If Mr. Ziegler's property was on CH versus CL, then outdoor storage would be considered an administrative approval at that point?
Right, an outdoor vehicle storage lot would be permitted use. Other types of storage has other conditional criteria.
All right, would that be considered a spot zone if it's already in the underlying land use would be CI in our comp plan? And I understand it's currently CL, but would this not be better suited for Mr. Ziegler to try to come in and get a CH zoning? And would that be possible under our current ordinances?
I think,
or LDRs, I guess it would be.
Right. I think under the comprehensive plan, it would not meet the policy of separating general commercial and heavy commercial from residential areas. Again, we tend to see those zoning districts themselves usually abut, CL before you get to an adjacent single-family area.
Stan, back when we're looking at the cement plant that was doing the work for the Indian Town Bridge, and we crafted an ordinance that was very site-specific and condition-specific. It had to be a part of the economic recovery stimulus money and things like that, to where there's only one little hole that this thing would fit. Why can't we do the same thing now with Mr. Ziegler's property? That, this will be a special exemption use for a CL property that is a half a mile from a skate town. It's 1 mile from the South County water plant, and it's within a half mile of Cap's Pizza. And if you fit that criteria, then you can do it. And then we just go that route.
I think the difference is with the concrete plant out there, the fabrication plant, that was a temporary use. And we recognized that it was a temporary use. We recognized that there were some criteria that essentially made sense and justified that. Here we're looking at a permanent use, and it's got to fit in the entire system that we have, the zoning and land use system that we have. And the more that you get away from overall policies, I think the more problematic it becomes.
And so by doing this 1 mile radius that you're talking about, then it would still come in as a special exception, so we could still make the determination about whether it fit or wouldn't fit. But clearly, an applicant would know far enough in advance that something like along these 1 mile radius areas that it doesn't fit it. So don't even try, don't waste your money on it because it doesn't fit our ordinance. And it gives the residents some level of protection.
That's correct.
But that's the reason why we just can't give that variance that Mr. Applegate seemed to have made so much sense with that I wish we could do.
Well, like Stan said, we can't give a variance for uses.
Okay.
And like I said, variances have very, very strict criteria, about 10 or 12 criteria that have to be met.
I wanted to get it right in my mind as much as try to
Yeah.
convey the point that what he was saying making sense, and this just seems like.
I get it. I was just trying to make it work for him as well as for us.
Well, and that's what we're trying
But
to
if
do.
you're going to make me choose, he loses. That's all I can say about that. I mean,
Okay.
You know, the last thing I would have to say again is the purpose of the proposed amendment is right here in writing in front of you. It says to ensure compatibility. Alternate 1, right here in front of you, says the potential to create incompatibilities. Now, you can't bring that in the door. It's gone. He did it. I didn't do it. You have to deny. We have to protect CL zones, and not only for us. It's just a bad idea. You guys were wrong on selling the vehicles right off the pop, and it took me 15 minutes to
No,
research that.
what the state is saying about, there's 2 things about what you have to do to sell a vehicle. One of them is you got to be allowed, the state, you got to own it and the title work and all that through the state. And that's what, basically, whenever you go in to do one of these title ponds, is that you sign all the papers over and you hand it to them. And so if you don't pay, then they get your vehicle and they got the title already executed and they can sell it. So can they sell it? Yes. Now, can they sell it, and can they sell it on a car lot in RCL zoning? That's a totally separate set of ordinances and rules. And so can they sell it? Yes. Can they sell it in a CL in our zoning? That the answer is no. So that's why you're seeing those 2 contradict, is because you ask the state, is it proper for them, will this guy get in trouble for selling something that he shouldn't be selling? The answer is no. It's not. But will they get, is it against our zoning code for them to do that in the CL zoning? The answer is yes.
Right.
So I know that, I hope that clears it up and doesn't.
Yeah, no, I was well aware of the conflict,
Okay.
but it's clearly a conflict.
Our local ordinance prevails.
Well, every pawn shop that has outside storage has cars in it.
Right.
That's correct.
I agree with you there. And that's why I'm sympathetic to what you're saying, and I get what you're talking about.
And
I really do,
cement
Mr.
mixers and extension ladders
And vehicles with
motorcycles.
extensions and,
yeah, I mean, they're very beautiful to
Floating
look at, you
vehicles.
know?
Sure.
Not something we want. So,
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Applegate. Anyone else? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Ron Gaber. I live at 14465 80th Avenue in Sebastian. And we moved to Indian River County about 10 years ago from Dade County. And we came up here on a part-time basis, which has been getting more and more full-time. 8 years ago, I moved most of my business up here.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And also most of my family up here. And we could have gone anywhere, and we are, both my wife and I are native Floridians, but we chose Indian River County. And we did it because we liked a lot of things about it. One of the things we liked about it was Indian River County did a pretty good job, certainly better than Dade ever did, of protecting its zoning. And what I see here, and it looks like where you're at this point, is you're trying to find a way through this and certainly proposing things that would protect Ursuline. But I hope you protect the county, because it's important. Ursuline and that area is a neighborhood that is residential, that is improving. And we ourselves just put some money into fixing up our house more, and there's a new house being built down the street from us that's a very nice house. It's an area that's on its way up. And I would hate, and there's lots of other areas, and that's going to happen in the future, is we've got a chance in Indian River County as this economy rebounds, It's going to get better, and you're going to be faced with these problems. As I said, my knowledge of Indian River County is you've done a good job protecting these areas. And I hate to see it diluted, not just for us, but for the whole county, because we're kind of proud about this county. And we like living here, and we like showing it off. So I just hope that you take all of that into consideration as you go forward with your decision to help protect and preserve the county for what it is and not have it become another Dade County.
Sure.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes.
Mr. Gabriel, exactly what you're talking about is what we're so sensitive to. I mean, I'm fourth generation from here, and thank you for the compliment about it being nice. It took things like the village spires going in before we realized we didn't want any more of those. And I guess, you know, in trying to find something that's right and wrong, and sometimes there is no right, there is no wrong, I guess, but this is also in the, you know, regardless of depending on how this turns out, this would be what they call a special exception. So it would not be a permitted use. It would rise to the level of, higher actually to the level of even a sand mine, for example. It wouldn't have to go to the rigors and the extremes. And so, you know, I don't ultimately know where this is going to wind up by any means, but it's not something that just because this were to pass here today, that then they would be able to put them up anywhere and everywhere. It would have to come before, it wouldn't be before this crowd, because if one of the other two ordinances, or other two sides of it were to be chosen to move forward with. So, but
I hope you do, because CL was there to preserve neighborhoods.
Sure.
Residential neighborhoods. Yep. And when you start, you know, changing it, you start to lose the integrity of those residential neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wesley, Commissioner Davis had just stated that he's fourth generation, and I think that has some leverage onto the appreciation of what is here, the heritage, the lifestyle that we have, the sense of community, the just the esoteric basis of what Indian River County is all about, specifically up in Ursul-Dune. And, well, I'll share the other end. I think I'm the newest entrant to this county. Might be close with Commissioner O'Brien, but other than that, no, I am the newest entrant. I want you to know how deep my appreciation is for this county. And when we travel and go throughout the state of Florida, you have to shake your head to see the difference, and I have to wonder, are individuals looking out for the composition of the community? They're not. I understand that we have to respond back to changes in technology, changes in environment, and changes in the amount of population that will reside here in this county. But quite personally, we have to remember that character counts, and character of the county has to prevail over all of those other changes. And you mentioned about change, and we should have look at exception. We have done that. This commission over the past couple of years has looked at non-common sense applications that just defy good progress, but they did not harm the quality of life, and they did not harm the patina in which we look at that we call Indian River County. So I can share that, just being a new entrant to the community, as you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have two microphones. Come on up.
Okay.
Please take the opportunity.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Hello, my name is Cindy Weddington. I live at 14300 80th Avenue in Sebastian in the Ursul-Dune Heights. I did have some concerns about storage at the bowling alley area there. Primarily traffic coming northbound and needing to turn into the bowling alley. Just passenger cars necessarily have to go up and make a U-turn and come back. I don't think you can make that turn pulling a trailer. So I think in order to get into that site, you would necessarily with a trailer have to pull and drive through the neighborhoods to get around to get into the bowling alley. And that does concern me because we have a lot of kids in the neighborhood now, a lot of young grade school kids and that, and there's, in my mind, some safety issues. I also noticed that next to my house, which is almost next to the bowling alley, there's also a school bus stop. There's a lot of kid pickup there. And then in general, I guess about the RV storage and in the broader content of what you're talking about, in general, as I moved here 2 years ago as well, my husband and I transferred here from Iowa, in part because of the recreational activities that are easy to do here. And I just hope that somehow we can keep the boat storage, RV storage, and that kind of stuff on residential lots as easy as possible for the people that live there, because that makes it easy for us to go and timely to go use our toys to go enjoy the environment here. That's all. Thank you.
Do you have an RV in your yard?
We have had a boat in our yard.
Okay.
Boat on a trailer, yes.
When I drove up there last week looking around, and kind of down near your address, I think, kind of more the south end,
Yes.
somebody does have a
Yes.
pretty nice RV down there.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
Rather colorful.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
wait, what kind of boat was it again? I'm just kidding.
Mako.
I went to auction school in Iowa.
Please, sir.
I'm Dave Stewart, 14425 80th Avenue. And one point I wanted to make, which y'all had made previously, is if you do allow storage in the CL, you'll be the only county doing it. Am I not correct in what was stated by staff? So everything that you said earlier about the county and how we appreciate it and how beautiful it is, then you're taking exception to that if you say, okay, we will allow this in a CL and no other county allows it. I just wanted to make sure those words came back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my
Welcome.
name is Bonnie Heck, and I live at 8035 142nd Street, excuse me, in Ursuline. And I have an exception to having the outside storage there. It is true, you're not going to be able to pull a boat going north on US 1 if you're in a trailer to pull around. They're going to have to come down the street by Water's Edge Dermatology, down to the end and around. This is why I don't want the traffic. My granddaughter and I, we ride our bikes, we walk there every single day. We don't need to have that kind of traffic going through our area. Not only that, we have the no, don't touch. We have the school kids right there, and they all walk to the bus. It's not that they get driven to school, they walk to the bus. So you're talking age levels from first grade all the way up to the junior high school, right? There's going to be a lot of traffic going through there because you're not going to be able to pull around. So in that case, I take exception to somebody's.
It's my fault.
And the gentleman next to you is sticking his tongue out.
He's got
Bob
that
makes a
way.
lot of little kids cry.
Anytime he sees Skittles, he can't control himself.
So anyways, I really want you guys to think of maybe not our homeowners here, but think of the little ones that are going to be out there walking the streets, and think about the problem that could be caused by that. And also with the pawn shop, I know it's coming up, and I know that that is a possibility, but they do have, as we said before, cars, motorcycles, they have the personal watercrafts and all the other stuff that could be outside. Don't forget, that's right behind where we're walking. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. May.
Hey, just staying on that, I take it a pawn shop is allowed under CL?
Yes, correct. Yeah, in retail buildings are allowed, and whether it's used merchandise or it's new merchandise that can be sold.
So really, if the state statute the gentleman quoted earlier is correct, if they're allowed to buy cars as a pawn shop, then they're not really storing them. They're not charging a monthly storage fee. They're buying and selling, which is a legal use. Would they not be allowed to do that under the CL anyway? I mean, because he just said they're allowed to do it, and they're not storing the vehicles. They're buying and selling.
Well, again, car sales, I know there is one by Mr. Sigler that's zone CL that's grandfathered in. That's the only reason it doesn't meet the current requirements. So if cars at retail building site, their customers, their employees that are there, or they're stored cars, or they're a car lot, and you can't have stored cars there, you can't have a car lot there, you can't be showing them and so forth. So they could not take in cars at a CL zone pawn shop and leave them outside. They'd either be considered stored, which would not be allowed. We don't allow commercial parking lots in CL, and we don't allow the car sales. So I don't see any way that they would actually fit into a category that's allowed in CL.
So don't try to pull in your old school bus. It's not going to work.
Not in the CL district.
Not here. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Melinda Merrick. I live at 8005 142nd Street, which is at the corner of 79 and 142nd, right behind the bowling alley. We just recently bought that property, and we were so impressed with the neighborhood and see it as improving, and we would be we're just very disappointed that this issue is even coming up. We know that there's business on Route 1, and certainly that's fine, but right now the medical offices and that kind of thing, that's a different type of business than what is being proposed for the pawn shop and outdoor storage. So I'd like you to consider that this is not exactly what we had in mind and what we envisioned for our neighborhood, and it's a great neighborhood. Sure is. So we just love it, so I hope you'll give that consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Albert Miliak. I reside at 14365 78th Avenue, Roseland Corridor. I'm here this evening with our fellow community residents that are concerned about this important decision on our property rights. Just let me mention again what other residents have been vocal about. Possible hazards to school children, possible increased and intensive use of traffic on a limited road, a potential eyesore. According to IRC Community Development Department Statement of Function, in quote, the planning process is intended to promote, protect, and improve public health, safety, appearance, and general welfare. Section 911.102E, in quote. The CL district is intended to accommodate the convenience, retail, and service needs of area residents while minimizing the impact of such activities on any nearby residential areas. I'd like to show you some impact pictures, if I may.
You have something for the overhead? Stan, can you give assistance?
Somebody turn the TV off.
Yeah, I have the document camera on.
I think the head has to be spilled.
Turn the light on.
Just like the Super Bowl, half of it don't work.
But we're going to have a win.
It's working on this side, Stan. I don't think that TV's on.
Yep.
That's fine. This is a 6-foot oblique fence. This is also the fence with some heavy machinery around it. This is a picture of a 6-foot oblique fence. Another picture of one. This is a 6-foot fence with vines. This is
That's
another
pretty.
6-foot fence with vines. Now, while a pawn shop is permitted in a CL district, if we look at the context of the surrounding businesses, which are predominantly medical and professional, it doesn't seem appropriate. So our question is, how does amending the LDR to allow this potential use accomplish your statement of purpose to improve public health, safety, and welfare, and fulfill the description of a CL district to minimize the impact of such activities on nearby residential areas? As elected county commissioners, we are counting on you to seize the opportunity to deny this, because if you don't, not only are you allowing State Road 60 corridor and all other county roads zone CL to be a potential pawn shop RV storage area with a 6-foot fence with vines. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Any further input?
I would like to just say one more thing, George Sigler again.
Certainly.
I've lived long enough to know the old saying, be careful what you wish for, is sometimes so true. But what I've heard here, if these folks in here had looked and canvassed what is allowed in CL, like I happen to own another home in this county that's across the street from a car wash. That is the noisiest, most intrusive, busiest, traffic-wise thing that could possibly be built, but it's okay to build one in a CL district. So I'm just saying, only because I'm sure my neighbors there in that area love to have the big vacant lot because kids play in it and animals run around in it. But eventually, even if you keep this CL up there, a developer is going to come in there and he may build something much more intrusive on that property than a nice, quiet RV storage facility. I'd much rather have that personally and know what I was into than have somebody come in and build a car wash or put a pawn shop in, or one of the other uses is a convenience store, a drive-through bank, things that create a horrendous amount of traffic. So if you're talking about traffic, just wait till some developer comes in there and builds one of these facilities that is allowed in a CL. You will see traffic like you will never see in an RV storage area. It just seems that we're picking on the RV, and I don't mind being picked on at all, but certainly do not overlook the fact that things are approved in a CL district that you may not want in your neighborhood at all, that are already there. So again, just be careful what you wish for. I appreciate your time again.
Mr. Sigler, thank you for your comments and your voice of reason regarding this application. I mean that sincerely, and your rationalization as well. Is there anyone else? Public hearing is now closed. Gentlemen?
Well, we've got two decisions. I'll tell you one that I definitely don't feel comfortable with, and that is allowing this up in the Roseland area. I certainly understand everybody's situation on that. Now we're torn with the decision about whether or not to allow it in other parts of the county on a case-by-case basis. And so I'm definitely not in favor of the ordinance as it was originally written. Now we need to decide whether or not we want to not allow it at all in CL or use that 1 mile radius. So I just want to make sure that regardless of which one of those two, it winds up being that the Roseland community, in my opinion, is going to be protected either way, because it just won't be allowed. Now, with that said, Commissioners, this is a tough one. I see Mr. Ziegler's position on it, and I don't want him to waste any more time if we're not going to do it. But at the same time, I can't allow it to be a blanket CL zoning allowable use like it was originally proposed that brought the crowd out here before us tonight. So I'm kind of leaning to one of the other two.
Commissioner Davis, I appreciate your comments. I have the same sentiments. I want you to know that Mr. Sigler is a responsible individual and dedicated to what we call our community, our sense of community. And I want you to know I appreciate that. I also know that the applicant for the Ursuline area is a very responsible individual and has been caring and concerned about the community and has responded to situations for the public feel and appearance in his business practice in the Mid-County. With that said, I find it a big challenge to go forward and support this in any way, shape, or form. Someone mentioned something about property rights. Yes, you do have your property rights to explore, and yes, we can change ordinances to increase the likelihood of your marketability, your business, or even in your residential applications in order to have a better quality of life. But in this instance, I don't believe that crosses in that path for the public at large that we serve.
Mr. Chairman, I concur with Commissioner Davis that whatever we do, the two choices, that the Roseland area won't be impacted. What I've heard mainly, though, is the arguments not to apply to the rest of the county. It's because the storage area would be incompatible. And I disagree a little bit with staff's wording of created incompatibilities. I don't think an RV, a boat trailer, are incompatible to residential areas. As I mentioned earlier, I've driven through the neighborhoods, and there is a house that has a boat on the trailer in the driveway. There was another property that had a large RV in the driveway. There was a property that had an empty boat in the front driveway. And there was a property that had a empty utility trailer in the front driveway. And those are the kind of uses that would go into one of these vehicle storage areas. And it's almost like, you know, if it's okay to have it in your driveway and nobody was screaming and yelling that was incompatible, I would think everybody would be happier having those behind some type of buffer and in one area, you know, not in everybody's driveway. So I don't see the vehicle storage as being incompatible, because these are the things that are going to be in those residential neighborhoods. The boat on the trailer, I'm guilty. A guy that has a lawn service and has a trailer with equipment on it, he would store it there. The folks with the RVs, those are in the neighborhoods now. So I don't think putting them all on one lot is incompatible to residential areas. So with that, and maybe just to help us move this one way or the other, I think Commissioner Davis was right. We can adopt it either staff's recommendation of alternative 1, which is the 1 mile buffer, or we can just deny it altogether. I'll go ahead and make the motion that we adopt adopt staff's recommendation of alternative 1, which includes the 1 mile buffer.
And I'll second that. And just, Dan, I just want to confirm that this would make it so that what the concerns were about the community of Roseland up there, this would prohibit anything like that within that 1 mile area.
That's correct.
And then also in those other areas that we delineated as the major entrances into the community?
That's correct.
I just want to confirm that.
Mr. Chairman, for discussion?
Yes, Commissioner Solari.
A couple things. One is, I find a huge difference between a boat in my driveway and a storage business. I mean, I have groceries in my home, but I don't want a grocery business next to me. I've got a car in my driveway in my house, but I don't want a car dealership next to me with the lights and everything else. So the fact that an individual is using his property the way it was meant to be used, whether it's a boat, a car, children, or anything else, is totally, to me, totally and radically different than having a business across the street or next door. So I'll start with that. The second one, my apologies to everybody from Ursula Dune, but I don't understand why your property is any different than any other residential property in the county, which is why I can't go for alternative 1.
Okay.
And my apologies to Mr. Ziegler. I understand that he's between a rock and a hard place, but we've got zoning laws for reasons. And I believe that Stan and Bob often quietly try to nudge us in the right direction, and I believe they're trying to quietly nudge us in the right direction tonight, despite some of their possible recommendations. And I think there are good reasons why we don't have certain businesses in CL neighborhoods. And even if today it might appear that a boat storage would be proper in a CL neighborhood, again, as these ladies and gentlemen point out, those neighborhoods may be changing. And maybe the use was grandfathered in, but if that use stops in that location for a year, then it won't be allowed back in. And that neighborhood might be able to take up another notch. So as much as I'd like to help promote more business in this community, tonight I'm afraid I'm going to have to go with an alternative where we can eliminate all potential conflicts with single-family uses by denying the proposed ordinance.
Thank you, Commissioner Solari. Commissioner Zorc.
Question for staff. It should say I basically agree with everything that Bob said, but I see one other thing that when we did, if going to the 1 mile entrance rule, when you cross Roseland Road and US 1, how far would it go back each direction from that at intersections that fall within the 1 mile?
Right, and that's why we had the maps attached to your backup material. And essentially, it goes down to the Sebastian city limits. So there is one CL located on the lagoon, which would be within that 1 mile area, and then all the CL that's along US 1 down to the northern limits of the city of Sebastian.
Okay.
Say that again, Bob? Do that geographic boundary one more time.
Okay, if you look at the 1 mile area up at the North County line, it includes all the CL properties that are along US 1 down to the northern limits of the city of Sebastian.
Okay.
There's also one small, within that 1 mile, same 1 mile, there's also one CL zoned property that's right on the lagoon.
That's included.
It would be included in this prohibition.
Okay, all right.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. I'm good.
Anything further? Well, as I said earlier, Mr. Ziegler, a responsible individual, applicant in North County, responsible. I want you to know I trust you to have a good neighbor. But that's the 2 mushrooms that we're talking about. If I know anything about mushrooms, they're going to grow. And this is going to then provide for more reason for conflict throughout other communities. You're correct. It's not about one community. We have a large representation of one community tonight. But it's about all communities. That sense of community has to be maintained. And if we begin to look at 1 mile radius, eventually those 1 mile radiuses will close in. And we will not be able to provide the same benefit for 2 individuals as we can for the other individuals. And in fairness, I believe that it is not in the best interest of the citizens of Indian River County to support the motion. I believe that we work hard for the community, and something else that was brought to mind is a vehicle inside of a driveway is not the same as a used car lot or a used RV lot. Yes, granted. But we're also looking at size, are we not, Stan? And we're looking at size. We're going to increase the size, increase the height. There was another discussion earlier today about 6 inches, and then it's another 6 inches. Then it's 42 feet. Some of these RVs are now 45 and 50 feet long, traveling the roadways. Where are you going to put that in the driveway? Where are you going to put that inside of a storage facility? So I believe the best case scenario for the county at this point is to deny across the board. With that, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion fails.
Mr. Chairman,
2 to 3.
I'll move we eliminate all potential conflicts with single-family uses by denying the proposed ordinance.
Second.
Can't beat them, join them.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Davis. I always enjoy it when you find a right on my ways.
We've had a sway. Well, that's a motion by Commissioner Solari, seconded by myself, and I think we have it a third at this point. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Yeah, I'll be consistent with my voting.
It's not too late. We can all get educated sooner or later. But we have a motion, and it's 4-1 with Commissioner O'Brien dissenting. Meeting adjourned. Good night. Did anybody bring pizza?